and welcome in to the 12th episode of the Out of Bounds podcast, presented by the Penn IUP Student Voice since 1926. I am your host, Josh Carney, joined in studio by Mike Gosnell and Pat Damp. And Pat, before we get into this trade deadline preview, my condolences. I'm sorry for your loss Friday night.
Yep.
6-4. What happened?
Just a rough game. You know, it's really hard to beat a team 3 times at this level in one season. Congrats to Cincinnati. They played us really hard, deserved that win. It's really tough to go out on a note like that. It's been a great last few years playing for the IUP hockey organization. I've had a ton of fun. I was honored to be a leader this year, and just heart goes out to the guys that I'm leaving with, and best of luck to the guys that are coming back. And lastly, congrats to University of Toledo on winning the Tri-State Collegiate Hockey League playoff championship. And I think they're going to nationals. If they are, good luck there. If not, great season, guys.
Did you give me my Hattie?
No, but I got you an assist. So.
I'll take it. Attaboy, Pat. All right, but on this edition of the podcast, we are going to be looking at the NHL trade deadline, as one Mike Gosnell called Christmas in March. The trade deadline is Wednesday, March 5th at 3 p.m., correct, fellas?
Correct.
3 o'clock.
Okay, well, one thing I want to talk about quickly, there was already a huge domino that fell. Ryan Miller and Steve Ott were dealt from the Buffalo Sabres to the St. Louis Blues for Yaroslav Halak, Chris Stewart, I believe it was William Carrier, and 2 first-round picks in 2014 and 2016, I believe.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
2014, 2016.
The first-round picks.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Both teams are winners on this one to me. St. Louis becomes a serious player in the West with Miller and net, and Steve Ott's going to fit into their system really well. And it's a win for Buffalo because Buffalo could still realistically flip Halak and Stewart for picks and prospects to help on their rebuild.
Yeah, that's what they're going to do. I know Halak is scheduled to start in net Tuesday, I believe. But they both are unrestricted free agents at the end of the year, and it would make sense for Buffalo to deal both of these guys away and continue to load up on prospects and picks. Because, Goose, there's one guy in the 2015 draft that's supposed to be the next Sidney Crosby. You and I both rave about. One Connor McDavid. Yeah. So, what do you think about the Sabres and Blues deal?
It's good. I mean, I before the deal went down, I thought St. Louis doesn't need to. I think they were a legitimate power in the West with Halak and Brian Elliott. But getting Ryan Miller and Steve Ott, guys that will fit in, and Miller should sign another deal there. I mean, the team in front of him is going to be great for years to come.
If he doesn't and he chases the money, I think it would be the dumbest decision of his career.
Says a lot about Ryan Miller.
It would be the dumbest decision of his career because you mentioned the Blues are pretty damn good. They're favorites in the West outside of Anaheim.
Pietrangelo, Shattenkirk.
He may
Eric
return
Jackman.
to form of the 2010 Olympics.
And for Buffalo, it was quite obvious when they got Stewart, when they got Halak, they're going to flip those guys for pieces. I like William Carrier. He's a very good player and playing in the queue right now. I think he could develop into a nice third-line guy, possibly even second-line guy. He's playing really well down in juniors. But I think Buffalo, this is the move they needed to make. This really is going to start their rebuilding process. A lot more dominoes from the Sabres will be falling. We'll see that probably as sooner as tonight. Tomorrow, most definitely, there's probably going to be some pieces that are going to be moved in by the deadline. But overall, this says a lot that St. Louis is here to play. They're not fooling around anymore, and they're ready for a Stanley Cup. And I think them, Anaheim, and Chicago are the teams right now that look the most Stanley Cup ready.
Are you talking about in the league in general or just out west?
In the league, in the West, probably in the West. I didn't mean the league, but in the West, those 3 are really the teams that I think are legitimate contenders. I wouldn't even put LA in there because I think LA needs another piece, maybe Matt Molson or Thomas Vanek. But I think Anaheim, St. Louis, and Chicago, those 3 really are legitimate if you want to go that far.
I think this trade is paying dividends already because Miller started, I believe, Sunday night in net.
Yesterday. Yeah, Sunday.
Looked
really good.
Yeah, against the Coyotes. Had 19 saves. The Blues bailed him out in the end, though. They scored 4 goals in the third period. But the Blues they're a legit threat to the Ducks now. Basically, in a game of chess, you're basically saying checkmate to the Ducks. Your move. Let's go. Let's see what you have. Which leads us into rumors that are flying everywhere. The first guy I want to start with seems to be the next piece to fall would be Thomas Vanek. There are a lot of teams rumored. You have the Chicago Blackhawks have emerged. You have the Ducks that are still in. The Red Wings are prepared to send a major offer. And you have the Nashville Predators that are still sitting outside of that inner circle but waiting for their chance to pounce on Vanek.
Don't forget about the LA Kings, too.
The LA Kings, I don't think the Kings make a move for him. That would be too much to give up, even when their system's depleted in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think Vanek, he ends up in Nashville. I think it's a perfect fit because they need scoring. They're getting Pekka Rinne back. They can make a run into the playoffs. I mean, they're just outside the 8th seed, I believe, a few points back. I think he ends up in Nashville. I had Vancouver on my mind. We'll get to that later. But I think he ends up in Nashville, and I think it's a good move for the Predators.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. They are struggling offensively, but you get a guy like Vanek that's going to kickstart your offense a bit. And with Rinne coming back, you already have a pretty well-established D. You don't have to worry about upgrading there. You got to get that offense in, and if your defense keeps clicking the way it usually does, and you get a guy like Vanek in there, you make yourself a serious contender going into the playoffs.
I mean, the teams that you listed there, I would actually include Montreal in that. I think Montreal could use another winger like that, but they seem like they're leaning towards dealing Andrei Markov. They're looking at deals for him. But I was watching the New Jersey Devils and the New York Islanders game Saturday, and Vanek looks totally disinterested in being there. The Islanders lost 6-1 to New Jersey in that game. He just looked like he's going through the motions, just waiting for a deal. I agree with you that Nashville could be a good fit for him, but I think that Detroit will probably make the strongest push and probably the better offer because Detroit has a lot to offer. I mean, we were talking about it off air, who I think they should include, like Tomas Tatar, Thomas Jurko, probably Justin Abdelkader, or another roster player of New York's choosing, and probably a pick. But I think Detroit could use a guy like Thomas Vanek, especially with players getting older there.
It's a big package to send for a guy that's not a lock to re-sign with you. If I were Detroit, yeah, they're getting old, but they got some of the best youth in hockey. Yeah. I think you need to hold on to that because you've seen guys that have been called up, Gustav Nyquist, Tomas Tatar, that have come up and really progressed for them and really pitched in when injuries have happened. You see guys like Datsuk still battling injuries. Zetterberg's out for the year. Franzen has looked good since the Olympic break. He sat out the Olympic break, I believe, with a hip injury. Mm-hmm. Had a hat trick in his first game back. I think you hold on to that youth, but I think Nashville pulls it off. Another guy I want to talk about right now is the other big piece, in a sense, and it's close to home with the Penguins. Ryan Kessler from Vancouver is rumored to want out of Vancouver. He's made it well known, at least to management. He hasn't said it publicly, but he wants out. The Penguins, the Blackhawks are two teams that come to mind. The Flyers have been said to be interested in him, and it's scary that the Blackhawks are interested. Patrick Kane, right after the Olympic break, went to management and said, do whatever you can to bring this guy in. If he were to go to the Blackhawks, I don't see anyone beating them out west. But, Goose, where do you think Kessler goes?
I don't think he goes to Pittsburgh. I think Chicago's probably the most likely. But if the Penguins are dead set of getting him, there was one player that Vancouver wants and the Penguins don't want to give up. They're one player away from getting that deal done. Sutter's fine. Picks are fine. You have to include Derek Pouliot in that deal. You have to. If you're Vancouver, you don't accept a trade, you move on. But Derek Pouliot has to be in that deal in order for Kessler to become a Pittsburgh Penguin. But that being said, I think Philadelphia has an outside chance of getting him. I don't see what kind of tangible assets the Flyers can send to Vancouver. But
probably someone like Voracek or Shen.
And some younger guys.
I would say Braden Shen, probably maybe throw in a roster player.
I heard it's Couturier, Shen, and a few picks. And if
Sean Couturier really hasn't impressed me. Neither has Braden Shen.
he looked good his rookie year, but
played really good against Malkin in the playoffs.
That's why I think you look. That's his ceiling, and he hasn't really reached that because he's gone through different systems in the past couple years.
But Chicago, if they can pull this off, it could be like the Penguins when they got those three Morrow, Iginla, Murray. But I think you're not going to have the same type of thing that happened with the Penguins happen with the Blackhawks. I think Kessler will find a nice place to fit in. I think he can play right wing. He could probably fit in on a wing somewhere. But at the same time, I don't see why teams like Chicago or Pittsburgh would want him based upon where's he going to fit? He's not a third line center. He's a first line or second line center.
I actually think, and Pat, I think you can back me up on this. I think Kessler can be a third line defensive center that can shut down the opposing team's top line.
Well, he's really underrated in that sense. I mean, he plays in a system like Vancouver, and he's a top 6 guy, but he has the ability to play a third line role. And that's something a lot of teams at this time of year are looking for, more production out of their bottom 6 as opposed to wanting to upgrade their top 6, because contenders at this time of year usually have their top 6 clicking, producing, and then you want to start focusing on your bottom 6. And I honestly think, you brought up the point of Patrick Kane telling management, do whatever you can to get this guy. That's a good endorsement for them, but you have to keep in mind, Kessler just came from Sochi, where he was coached by Dan Bylsma, Tony Granato, and Ray Shero was his general manager. They played a very similar system to the Penguins. He looked very comfortable in it. He's still got 2 years left on his deal, which is why I think a lot of teams are eyeing him, because they don't have to worry about using him as a rental. They'll have him for the next 2 seasons. That said, I don't think he goes to Chicago, just because I don't think Vancouver would send them a guy like Kessler, who's one of their rivals. I don't think they would want to do that. I got to agree though. Dumoulin's the X factor here. If the Penguins really don't want to part with him, then you gotta say thanks for the offer and thanks for talking to us. We're not giving this guy up. But I think it's worth it if they give them Dumoulin or even someone like Dupre. But we'll see what happens in the next 48 hours.
I would say you give him Dumoulin and Dupre and hold on to Pouliot. If you let Pouliot go, especially when he was the main piece, in my opinion, in that Jordan Staal deal, I mean, granted, they got lucky with Ole Mata being as good as he is. But could you imagine a top 2 in 4 years of Pouliot and Mata, and then having guys like Scott Harrington, Philip Samuelson, Chris Letang? I mean, they have the defensive depth to give up Pouliot. I don't want to see it. I think what Pittsburgh can do and will do is if they realize that they can't get him at the deadline and that Vancouver's not going to move him, because Vancouver's been through this before with Roberto Luongo, and they still have him. Pittsburgh could hold out until the draft and make something happen and hope that the whole situation with Kessler and Vancouver boils over to where they have to get rid of him.
Vancouver's a very tough place to play. I mean, for any player, in Canada anywhere, it's very tough. Montreal comes to mind as the toughest place to play if you're a player when dealing with fans and the media, but Vancouver's relentless. Drove Pavel Bure out of town. Surprised it hasn't driven the Sedin twins out of town. It's driven a lot of players out of Vancouver because they just can't deal with the pressure that they have to play under. And I was kind of surprised to hear Kessler wanted out, because I think he's a perfect player for John Tortorella. He's a good two-way guy. He's a good mix of grit, good mix of goal-scoring ability. It's just surprising that he'd won out of Vancouver, but I was just going to say I don't think he gets traded at the deadline, because I don't see teams that are willing to match what Vancouver wants, and I don't see teams that have the assets that Vancouver wants. The only team that has legitimate assets are the Penguins, but the one player that is probably needed in that deal is Derek Pouliot, and you're not going to give him up, at least in theory.
Yeah, another defenseman that is available that the Penguins could look to add, Andy McDonald of the New York Islanders turned down a contract extension offer from the Islanders the other day, basically making him another domino to fall.
He's up for grabs right now.
Yeah.
As is Christian Ehrhoff.
Pittsburgh, Philly, and Detroit there's a reoccurring trend here. You see who the contenders are in a sense. You see who the teams that feel they can make a run are, and they're going after pieces that are out there. Andy McDonald, he's good. I think he'd be a nice, probably fifth or sixth defenseman for the Penguins right now.
He's due for a major pay raise. He's played very well for New York and rather underrated. No one talks about him.
Just a steady guy all around, and that's where he is on most rosters. That's all you're going to ask of him, and
he's not going to get a Matt Niskanen type of pay raise like Matt Niskanen deserves, but he needs more money.
Yeah, I think he ends up in Philly. I think Philly pulls it off. I think Pittsburgh, their main focus is on Kessler right now, and I think when they're doing that, that's going to draw them away from other deals. But I think McDonald ends up in Philly and bolsters that blue line. Boston's not even in on him.
I'm surprised Boston's not in on him. I mean, Boston could use another solid defenseman to round out their defensive core. That doesn't mean guys like Dougie Hamilton, Torrey Krug, and they're without that in Seidenberg for the year.
Boston's interested in Alexander Edler from the Canucks.
If you want a more proven guy, yeah, but you could probably get McDonald on the cheap, and you could sign him for a long-term deal. And Edler, I don't know about his contract status. I think he's under lock and key for a little bit, but I think a guy like Andy McDonald has a lot more long-term potential than an Alex Edler. But if you're looking at better body of work, obviously you're going to go with Edler. But I just don't understand why the Bruins are not taking a look at Andrew McDonald.
Focused on Edler. Question for you, Pat. Martin Brodeur, rumored to be on the move. Minnesota is the favorite in a sense if they can't get Yaroslav Halak from the Sabres. But another potential destination that appears everywhere when it comes to rumors is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Not a fit. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. The way I look at the Penguins' goaltending situation, Vokun was and is their perfect backup because he's not going to carry the team. I'm not discounting what he did in the postseason last year. But Fleury's at his best when he has someone that could maybe take his job. I'm not saying that, they need to get rid of Fleury, whatever. If you have someone like Brodeur, he will steal Fleury's job, and in the long run, that's awful for Marc-Andre Fleury.
But Brodeur's 40, so he's not going to steal his job.
I understand that.
Taking his confidence away is, I think, what Pat is saying. Because you can't have another reoccurring thing what happened with Vokun and Fleury in the playoffs.
Well, that's why Fleury's playing so well now is because he knows Zach Koff's not going to take his job.
And it just...
I don't think... No.
The confidence thing that I'm getting at is just when the illusion is there that the number 2 goalie could take the job, he plays better. He played really well last year in the shortened season with Vokun behind him. And then we all know what happened in the playoffs, and Vokun stepped in beautifully, but... If that would have happened in game 4 or 5 of the regular season, we're singing a whole different tune about that season in general.
I'm not saying Zatkov takes Fleury's job whatsoever, but I'm saying Fleury has a hell of a lot to prove, and I think that's why he's playing well, not because he doesn't have Vokun behind him. I think he's out to prove every critic in the NHL, and especially in Pittsburgh, wrong. But we mentioned Yaroslav Halak, Philly, Pittsburgh, Washington, and Minnesota are rumored. He's not going to end up in Pittsburgh. No. He won't end up in Philly. I think it's Washington or Minnesota. If the Capitals are smart, they make a move for him before Minnesota gets the chance. Because the Capitals, they're a good team. They can light it up, but they can't stop anything. Braden Holtby looks bad. They're getting ready to move Neuwirth, or however you say his name. Whatever. Yeah, you're the hockey guy.
Holtby didn't look too bad yesterday, though, against the Flyers.
But they're not happy with him. They're not happy with his progressions.
The worst thing they ever did was trade Semyon Varlamov. That's the worst thing they did.
Well, they have nothing to show for it.
No. It's... Ottawa should make a run at Yaro Halak.
What's wrong with their goaltending situation?
Nothing, but you upgrade. Nice 1-2 punch in Craig Anderson and Yaro Halak.
I wouldn't give up.
They're probably going to make a run at Molson.
Yeah, they're
and or Stewart or both.
Yeah. You mentioned Christian Ehrhoff. There's another Sabres defenseman that's rumored to be shopped.
Pittsburgh. I'm here. Yeah.
I wasn't talking about Ehrhoff. I was going to mention Tyler Myers.
Really?
That I heard the Avalanche and the Oilers. But I don't think he gets moved because that contract is ridiculous. I think he stays put.
Do we know the terms of his deal? It's a long-term contract,
It was like 6 years, like 56, 50. I think he got 57 for his jersey number.
Wow.
So
He had a lot of promise.
I can look that up, but he had a lot of promise.
He's a softie.
Yeah, he is, and he tends to want to be a finesse guy instead of using his size to his advantage. I think he should look at Zdeno Chara and say that's how I should play. I mean, what do you think about that, Pat?
That's people were touting him as.
Well, Zdeno Chara is ideal for his size because he plays a balanced enough game. He's not overly physical like a lot of people would want a guy his size to be, and he doesn't try to be finesse. He plays a good positional game. He's physical when he needs to be, and he's just a good leader as a defenseman, and that's something that I think Tyler Myers should try to emulate, but he doesn't.
One other guy I want to mention before we move on to the second half of the season, in a sense. Marian Gaborik. The LA Kings are supposed to be all in on him. Good move for the Kings?
Absolutely not. You look at Gabrik's overall body of work the past couple years. Yeah, 40 goals for New York, 30 goals for New York, but I don't trust Marian Gaborik anymore because he's frail. He's a dynamic player, sniper. He'll get you goals, but at the end of the day, can you stay healthy? That's a terrible move for the Los Angeles Kings. I don't see the wisdom in that at all.
Tyler Myers is locked up until he's an unrestricted free agent in 2019. Christian Ehrhoff is locked up moving into the 2019-20 season. That's going to be a ridiculously hard contract to move. I think he stays put. I think Henrik Talinder could be moved because he's an unrestricted free agent in 2014. So that could be a piece to add. I want to talk about the whole Ryan Callahan situation. I'm going to hold off on you for a sec, Goose. I want to get Pat's thoughts. Apparently, Callahan has softened his stance when it comes to the year length. He's down from 7 to 6, and he's down from $7 million to $6.5 million. But according to Pierre LeBrun, that's still too high for the Rangers, and they have until Wednesday at 3 p.m. to figure it out. There's a 75% chance he comes back, but there's still a 25% chance. Do you think he stays or he's moved?
I think he stays simply because he softened his stance, and that kind of reveals his true intentions. You know, most guys, if they want to be moved at this time of year, when they get into contract negotiation, they hard line it. They say, this is what I'm taking, take it or leave it, and then they'll get traded. Or, well, most teams will trade. They won't let you walk for nothing, especially a guy like Callahan. I think he stays in New York. I think they're going to get this deal done before Wednesday, and we're going to keep seeing Callie as a Ranger.
Me? Okay. I don't think he... If you would have asked me this yesterday or the day before, I think, yeah, I was getting ready to say, okay, bye. I'm not going to pay you $7 million. But softening his stance says a lot that he wants to remain a New York Ranger, and great. Keep the captain. I don't think he's a fit on any other team because he fits the New York Rangers so perfectly. I don't think any other team would know how to use him quite like the New York Rangers do. He's a captain. He brings... Sure, he gets banged up from time to time, but...
You know who would know how to use him? Vancouver Canucks. You know why?
Torts.
Well...
Yeah, well...
I'm just saying.
He's versatile. He can play first, second, or third line winger. Doesn't gripe about it. He'll play anything his coach tells him to do, which is great. I know Vigneault loves him. Torts loved him. But 25% chance still scares me. It scares me a lot. At the end of the day, I think you're not going to hear anything on the Ryan Callahan front. I don't think they get the deal done necessarily at the deadline, but I think he'll get the deal done as the season goes along. But I'm glad he softened his stance just a little bit. They're $500,000 off.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Yeah. Don't discount that.
I'll take $500,000
I'll take $500,000 to play hockey. One game. I'll do one shift. Give me $500,000. Okay. I'll go out there and fight Scott Stevens.
If he was still playing.
I'd die. I know. We were talking about him off before we started this. Anyway, Pat, really quickly to end all trade talks, there's one guy you wanted to mention that the Penguins should go after. Who is it and why?
The guy I'm looking at is Nikolai Kulemin of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's a winger with offensive upside. He's been a little bit underutilized up in Toronto this year. He's probably their second best penalty killer. The Penguins need a penalty killer and a top 6 guy with the loss of Pascal Dupuis. He knows Evgeny Malkin. Don't discount that. That's a huge factor. Malkin's done that before with a couple people that he's been good with, he's been tight with, that he kept in Pittsburgh. He would be a rental, but with UC Jokinen being a free agent at the end of the season, he's going to get paid somewhere. Probably not in Pittsburgh. You can potentially find a fit for him here. And most importantly, the way I see this, Toronto wants to upgrade on defense at the deadline. A guy like Simone Dupre would fit with them perfectly.
See ya. That's what I would do.
And the Penguins need a guy to fit in on one of their first 3 lines, either on the wing to help Brandon Sutter to get 2/3 of a competent third line, or I think you have to start him with Crosby and Kunitz to see how he does.
Yeah, I think if they were to get him, ultimately he would end up on Malkin's line. But I would be completely fine with doing Simone Dupre for Nikolai Kulemin straight up. You mentioned Toronto needs defensive depth.
And they're actively shopping for defensive depth. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah, and I would be completely fine with that deal because what I want to get into really quickly before we end this segment, Saturday, March 1st, was the Stadium Series. And the Chicago Blackhawks beat the Penguins 5-1 at Soldier Field. And one guy who looked absolutely atrocious, that stuck out the most to me on that defense, was Simone Dupre. There were only 2 guys that were even or plus on that defense. And it was Matt Niskanen at +1 and Olli Maatta at even. Brooks Orpik was a -3. Dupre was a -3. And no, Dupre was -2 and Rob Scuderi was a -3. That's bad.
It's not good. Honestly, I got to disagree with you a little bit, though. I'm not defending Dupre. He was terrible. The whole team was terrible in the Stadium Series. But Brooks Orpik, man, he's been bad this season.
Yeah.
And there was the review of it on NHL Network when they're going over the highlights. They showed Taves' goal where he absolutely walked Brooks Orpik.
Well, Taves does that to everyone. I mean, he's done it to a lot of defensemen.
This is what I'm getting at, though. The announcer said, "Oh, that's a top NHL defenseman he did that on." I don't know what season he's been watching.
Yeah.
I love Brooks Orpik. He's been loyal. He's been here since that whole X Generation fiasco. But
don't remind us, please.
It's time for the Penguins to shake hands and say goodbye with Brooks Orpik because he's not been good.
Unfortunately, I think he is gone at the end of the year. And if they were to add a defenseman at the deadline, it would have to be a guy that's under control, and that would seal Brooks Orpik's fate right there. They could move Brooks at the deadline. They could, but I doubt it.
The problem with that is he's a free agent at the end of the year, unrestricted, and the only place I see him fitting is a team that's young and is trying to rebuild and find their character. And
Edmonton.
I don't see a team like that wanting to sign Brooks Orpik to a longer term contract, which is what he would want at his age.
Yeah, and I think if Brooks is smart, he realizes that he's coming to the end of his career. I would love to see him not put on another uniform, sign a hometown discount, take a pay cut, do whatever you got to do to stay in Pittsburgh, and be a 5th or 6th defenseman for that team. Hell, even a 7th defenseman. I don't care if he's scratched. I just don't want to see him in another uniform. You guys know he's my favorite Penguin, but he's been bad this year. He looked good. Not good. He looked average in the Olympics. He didn't look bad. He didn't look good.
He was passable.
Yes.
And I agree. I would not like to see a guy like Brooks Orpik go anywhere else, but the way he's been this season and the way the Penguins' defensive depth is, it's really hard to see him staying or retiring as a Penguin.
I just don't want to see him lose a spot to Simone Dupre because Dupre took some dumb penalties in that game. He got blown by numerous times. They didn't look like they were ready to play. And this is going to be a funny stat because they had 2 weeks off, but the Penguins haven't won since February 12th.
Well, and on Dupre, he's getting chance after chance after chance to prove himself, and he continues to not.
He's just not capitalizing.
Take a look at a guy like Robert Bortuzzo, who's in the same position. Every time he's been up, he's been a solid player, whether he's been physical or made smart decisions with the puck. He's been steady any chance he gets. Simone Dupre, can't really say the same.
No, I completely agree with you. Moving on, Tuesday night, Pekka Rinne returns against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Nashville, again, still fighting for a playoff spot out west. do the Penguins continue their losing streak, or do they get back on the right side?
It's going to be really hard for the Penguins to get a win. I think they can. I think they are the better team in this matchup, but playing on the road in Nashville against a team that's getting their star goaltender back, a lot of emotions going to be flying through that locker room. They're going to want to get a win for Rene, and that's a dangerous animal if you're going up against a team in their home building and their star goaltender's coming back for the first time in 50-some games.
Yeah, Nashville's a very tough place to play, especially when they're on their game. They haven't been on their game at all this season. I don't see Nashville winning this game, really. I think it's just going to be too much too soon for Pekka Rinne. I think he just... First game back against a good team like that is not really ideal, but he's one of the best. When healthy, he's one of the best in the league, so we'll see what happens with that, and hopefully he does well. I hope he does well in this first game back.
Goose, I see your point, but Pat, I see what you're saying as well. And I think there's a level of pride in the sense that, hey, Pekka's back. We got to play at the top of our game. Let's get him a win. Let's get the fans back into this. Let's make this playoff push. I got the Predators. I mean, the Pens just look so flat right now. Maybe they shake things up, bring in a guy like Kessler at the deadline. It's not looking great right now, but I have the Predators in this one. I think it goes into overtime. But I just think the Penguins look flat right now, and it's not a time to panic. But
no, they have such a substantial lead in the Metro Division, and they need to get a little bit healthier. I think they're gonna make a couple moves here in the next day or two, but like you said, the Kessler thing's looking less and less likely. But the way the Penguins are right now, the worst thing they could do is stand pat at the deadline. That would be just a horrible mistake.
Yeah.
Tune in to TSN on Wednesday online, streaming tsn.ca.
Class all day.
Well, you could always follow the Out of Bounds podcast on Twitter at the OOBP. I'm sure Pat will be tweeting up a storm. I will. We'll keep you up to date. I'm sure we'll be retweeting stuff. You can follow Goose. I don't know your handle off the top of my head.
OOBP.
I just did that.
Okay, missed it. Just made sure they heard it.
At Mike Osno _IUP.
There you go. You can follow.
Maybe follow me. I don't know how much personal tweeting I'll be doing about it, but at synonym for wet.
Because his last name's Damp. Get it?
See, he gets it.
Well, But
some people don't.
Darren Dreger, Bob McKenzie, Gord Miller, James Duffy, Renaud Lavoie,
Aaron
Ward, all those guys. Nick Kiprios.
How about Scott Burnside and Pierre
Burns.
LeBrun?
ESPN.
It doesn't matter. Those two love hockey.
Those two, for being employed by ESPN, do pretty okay work for.
I mean, look, Burnside got the inside scoop on USA Hockey.
True.
So.
But I really like Darren Dreger, Bob McKenzie. I love those guys.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I like Craig Custance as well. I know he's ESPN. But guys, that's gonna do it for the trade deadline preview. Again, keep on the lookout for that. Wednesday, March 5th at 3 p.m. I'm sure deals will be flying. The rumors will be flying everywhere. Deals will be made left and right. I expect a lot of names to move. But for Pat Damp and Mike Osnell, I'm your host, Josh Carney. When we come back, Kyle Condor and assistant producer Dimitri George will step in. Talking a little football. There's some news. And maybe some IUP basketball.
Let's go Hawks.
What's going on, everybody? It's Kyle Condor. Just letting you know the Out of Bounds podcast is brought to you by the Penn, IUP student voice, with music provided by Beats by the Passion. High five. Don't forget to holler at your boys on Twitter at the OOBP, and you can also check out our podcasts at thepenn.org or on iTunes.
And welcome back into the Out of Bounds podcast. I'm your host, Josh Carney. And as I mentioned before break, I'm joined in studio by assistant producers Adam Clapp and Dimitri George. And our usual guest, Kyle Condor. Fellas, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah. When was the last time? Thursday?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a very long time.
Uh-huh.
But we're talking football. Dimitri, you and I have been texting back and forth all day about the Steelers situation. We'll get to that in a second. Kyle, I know this is going to pain you because you can't stand talking about this guy sometimes, but Johnny Manziel is in the news again, but not for something he did. One Ron Jaworski, the self-proclaimed NFL quarterback guru for ESPN.
I prefer Trent Dilfer.
Yes, I completely agree with you. But Ron Jaworski came out and said that he would not draft Johnny Manziel in the first 3 rounds. Now, keep in mind, Ron Jaworski also said after that quote that he's only watched 5 full game tapes of Johnny football. There's problem number 1. Okay, Manziel's played almost 22 games over the last year, and you've only watched 5 of them. That's just under a fifth of his career games. And you're going to make that assumption that you can't draft the best college football player in the last 20 years, maybe, in the first 3 rounds?
You better than Tim Tebow?
Yeah. And,
I know you're that's what I'm saying, because you're the biggest Tim Tebow fan I know.
He's 10 times better than Tim Tebow because Manziel can throw.
Are you a Tebow fan?
I love Tim Tebow.
Oh, my God.
He's huge. Huge!
You knew this.
No, I didn't. I'm glad I didn't.
I love Tim Tebow. I read his book.
Wait,
I have his Broncos jersey, his Florida jersey.
That's cheesy. That's cheesy.
Listen, I was...
And what are you going to get? His CBS shirt as well?
If they have it, I'll get it. I
shirt?
honestly, you can ask Dimitri. Last year, I was contemplating getting a New York Jets jersey.
Wow. Actually, I know a few people with Tebow Jets jerseys.
Hey, don't you have a favorite athlete that you just would follow anywhere?
Yeah, but
Who?
it's not going to be
Who?
somebody like Tebow who's terrible.
I'm talking... He was one of the greatest college football
You're a
players.
big college guy. All right, I understand that. You're a big college
And
guy.
I knew he wouldn't be great in the NFL. But I will say this.
I still can't believe he got drafted in the first round.
He beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in a playoff game. That's my only argument to people that say he can't win. He won a playoff game. He did more for the Broncos in 1 year than Peyton Manning did in 2.
Wow.
He beat Peyton Manning to winning a playoff game for the Broncos. Keep that in mind.
He made it to the Super Bowl, though.
Yeah, well, I know, but I'm saying Tebow was gone after that.
All right, we're out in left field right now.
I know. Coming back, Johnny Manziel. Kyle, what do you think of Jaworski's comments? Just asinine in a sense?
Absolutely. If I heard this correctly, Jaworski wouldn't draft him in the first 3 rounds just because of his antics.
And he's a project. I don't
What?
see a project anywhere.
What NFL rookie that's getting paid multi-millions is not going to be a project? Like 60% of them are projects nowadays. There's something in the news every day, and it's usually about the younger players.
I think this is the problem with quarterbacks coming out now. You're seeing guys like Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, Colin Kaepernick. I'm probably forgetting a few. RG3 that are coming out and playing well right from the get-go. Right from the first minute they step on the field at OTAs, they're the starting quarterback for the team, besides Russell Wilson and Colin Kaepernick. But they've stepped in, and they're playing fantastic football for their teams. And GMs and scouts are all expecting these guys to come out to be that immediately. That's not fair.
Kyle, you're going to hate me, but I feel like what you're alluding to with these young guys coming out and playing really well early, I think started back in 2004 when Ben did it.
Well, yeah, he came out and went 15-1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
15-0. They were 0-1 when he came in.
Chances are the
they're
deep.
1-0.
Well,
They're-
14-1.
Ben just got lucky, slipped to the late rounds of the draft, and got drafted by a team like the Steelers that were good when he joined them. That's nothing against Ben,
They went 6-10 the year before.
who did a great. Yeah, but they were ready to go. Like that was their rebuild. And then the year Ben came on, it was like, all right, let's go. We're gonna make the playoffs. They ended up
They went to the
going
AFC Championship
15.
game.
Yeah, they ended up going 15-1. So he definitely helped them exceed expectations.
Well, he wasn't even supposed to start. Maddox
Yeah.
blew out his
All right,
elbow.
hey, left or right field this time.
Well, I'm just saying.
Oh my God, now I almost forget where I was going with this.
I'm sorry. We haven't talked in a
The
while. I
thing
told
is,
you
Johnny
this.
Manziel is not going to get drafted by a team that's bad because, sorry, Ron Jaworski, he's not slipping past the 3rd round. He might not even slip past the 3rd pick. So he's probably going to get drafted to a garbage team unless it ends up being the Texans, who are sort of ready to go right now and just had an off year, or, some other teams up top that aren't going to draft a quarterback but could be good next year, like Atlanta. Point to be made here is that Johnny Manziel is not going to get drafted by a team like Ben did that's ready to go. He's going to have to step in and be a leader right away, like teams like the Jets have expected Geno Smith to do. So I don't think that's going to be able to happen right away, and he's going to hear all this criticism and stuff like that. But Ron Jaworski's, I'm going to say it straight up, that guy's an idiot for saying he should get drafted past the 3rd round.
That's
Johnny Manziel's growing on me a lot. You mentioned that how I don't really like him, but I don't like John Gruden either, and the two of them sat down together on ESPN and they did that little.
You don't watch those?
I do all the time.
You don't
You
like
John
Gruden?
Gruden?
I'm not a fan just because like I can't stand like I like what he does, except for Monday Night Football. I can't stand listening to that guy on Monday Night Football. Didn't we?
So
Didn't
Really?
we talk about that?
You don't like him
Dude.
on Monday Night Football?
I could go out and play wide receiver for the Panthers one game, and Johnny Manziel, John Gruden would be like, "You guys see Kyle Condor out there? The way he leaps is incredible." It's like, dude, not everyone is good.
Listen, in that sense, he's over the top at times. But when
Way
he's
over the top.
talking X's and O's,
Would you rather listen to him than
Oh.
Tony Kornheiser or Ron Jaworski?
Tony Kornheiser is not an in-game analyst. I would much rather watch Tony Kornheiser on the most popular ESPN show there is in PTI than John Gruden.
What?
You guys are killing our dreams right now. Like Tony
color-
Kornheiser is a genius that never played.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
say a genius.
He's so good at what he does, though. I'd much rather listen to
I'm saying
him.
a color commentator, be a former player, coach, whatever, is supposed to provide, give knowledge or
Yeah, but he hypes up every single player.
He does.
And we're gonna go into left field a little bit and continue this if you don't mind.
Go ahead. We're already there.
He hypes up every single player. It's like Chris Webber in the NBA too. It's like, dude, like this guy's not gonna want to go out for a drink after the game with you. Just if you think he's doing something wrong, you have to say it. That's why people don't like Chris Collinsworth, who tells it like it is. You gotta give credit where credit is due and take it from where it's not due. John Gruden will never say a player's not doing good, and it kills me. So like, even with Johnny Manziel, he's sitting there like, oh yeah, I understand how you were in such a spotlight, you had to deal with that. Like, all right, just stop, dude. You have to tell somebody at some point they're not doing the right thing.
Going back to Jaworski real quick, I'll give my take real quick. Yeah, I think he's an idiot too because you can't. If you watched all the game tape that you had of Johnny Manziel and then you said that,
Okay.
I can understand because that's how you feel. That's what your judgment is. Everyone has their own opinion.
But he comes out and says, I've only watched 5 games.
Yeah, that's stupid. You're stupid.
Your
But-
credibility's
but
out the
again,
window.
Look at Jaworski. Who does he love the most? Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying like he's dumb for really liking their game and appreciating the way they play the quarterback position.
It's a cop-out.
But the game is evolving, and he's not with the game. Like you were telling me with the Steelers and how they need to adjust to, if they should be adjusting to, the new day and age of football and free agency and all that. He's not. He wants Johnny Manziel to sit in the pocket, and I'm sure he loves Teddy Bridgewater because
I don't think Bridgewater's that a pocket passer in a sense. He moves.
he can.
I
but
bet you who he loves, and I'm kind of
AJ?
right there with him. AJ McCarron. I bet you he loves AJ McCarron. Just saying.
But we wanted to talk. We kind of saw eye to eye that when he said Geno Smith, we wanted to go to. Do you have somebody else you want to talk about there, Carney?
One Phil Simms, another guy I can't stand.
He's awful. Do you like him? Or do
He's
you,
all right.
Well, I mean, you're a Fox
I don't know.
guy.
He's like I'm
Yes.
a Fox guy, and
So you like Aikman?
Phil Simms can break it down to you, and like people don't like him because he tells it like it is.
No. If you
Oh,
listen
boy.
to him call a game, if it's a Broncos or a Colts when Peyton Manning was there, or a Patriots game, and you watch and you listen to him, and I'm gonna say the Steelers because it's almost known, or even a Giants because he played for the Giants. You cannot be biased in that business of commentating, and
They all are a little bit, dude. If you're a color guy or a play-by-play whatever, and you're doing a Steelers game, you're gonna be biased. You're Dimitri George. You're gonna
I
be
can't
biased.
be.
What?
I can't be.
That's
That's unprofessional.
Watch. Just go ahead. Continue.
Unprofessional.
They all have a little bit of bias, but I don't know. Whatever. They're not
Getting-
supposed to. So I'll stop.
Getting back to what we were saying, Phil Simms says that if Geno Smith were to come out this year, he'd be the #1 quarterback.
Listen.
What?
Geno Smith had some really, really bad games, but he also had some really good games. I mean, if you look at the quality wins the Jets had, they beat the Saints, the Patriots. I'm drawing a blank.
I know he had a great Monday night against the Falcons,
beat the Falcons on the road.
which the Falcons were bad, but
right.
still.
I mean, it's still early in the season, so you didn't really know. I'm drawing a blank. They had a couple of really good quality wins. I mean, he helped the Steelers out, getting in the playoffs, very close to getting in by beating the Dolphins, who were fighting for a playoff spot at the end of on the road.
Didn't they beat the Dolphins twice?
No. The Dolphins steamrolled them in New York.
Oh, okay.
It was like literally we're coming back from Thanksgiving break. I was watching on the way back.
Okay, well,
Anyways. But
how dumb of a comment is that?
Oh, Phil Simms is an idiot. It's simply put, he's an idiot.
I
He's
listened to Trent
asinine.
Dilfer. Trent Dilfer could be trying to sell me something I don't need. I'd buy it because he's a genius. He called Jameis Winston winning a national championship on the last drive. You go back to the ESPN QB 11 camp, 2012, when Winston committed to FSU. Dilfer sat down in a one-on-one interview with him and said, Jameis, I see the skills you have, the drive you have. I see you winning a national championship on a final drive, making a big-time throw. He's like, that's just the characteristics that you have. You're going to be a superstar, but don't let it go to your head. 2 years later, in his first season playing college football, leads FSU on a championship-winning drive. Throws a big-time throw to the back of the end zone to Kelvin Benjamin.
Geno Smith might be in my top 5 if he were to come out this year. Might be.
He would struggle.
It's just too tough to say. It's always that guy who gets taken in like the 4th round, like Nick Foles or somebody that like pops up out of nowhere. It's just too tough to say.
I'm really curious to see what he does this year, though.
Who's that?
Foles.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Who's to say the Eagles don't trade him and move up and draft Manziel?
That would never happen.
Do you know Chip Kelly loves Johnny Football? And it's been
assume so,
there was a rumored deal. Listen,
he would get crushed.
Chip Kelly
If he traded Nick Foles after what he did finally for the
and
Eagles,
got Manziel.
Well, this is why I told you.
yes,
back
he'd
home,
get crushed.
Back home, I told you I listened to 97.5. A lot of people were not sold on Foles even after this year. But that's just how Philly is. Honest to God.
I think
That's how Philly is. They all are hype. Nick Foles could have threw 2 touchdowns and 25 picks, and they would have been sold on him. That's how they are with all their players.
For the most part, all the callers that called in to like Mike Missinelli and all those guys were not sold on Foles.
I think Foles is the real deal. I just don't think he fits Chip Kelly's offense moving forward because Kelly's going to want a guy that can move, and Foles can't. But I think Johnny Football.
Not if they put that new rule in.
Oh God.
Chip Kelly would be doomed.
Yeah, I think Manziel. Getting back to Johnny Football, I think Manziel goes top 6. If he doesn't, he slips to the Vikings at 8. But I mentioned on Sports Talk Live last Friday, Dimitri, you hosted that show. I mentioned that the Browns weren't sold on Manziel like everyone thinks they were. They're sold on, I believe, I said Derek Carr, and
the Raiders.
The Raiders and the Browns are both sold on Derek Carr over Johnny Football. So Johnny Football could slide. And if he falls to 8 to Minnesota, Minnesota's going to rejoice and have a resurrection up there. But it's tough. But, guys, there was a lot of movement today in the NFL. First off, Anquan Bolden re-upped with the 49ers 2 years, I believe $12 million.
Yep.
In my opinion, that's a good deal because he provides Kaepernick with a safety blanket.
They still need someone on the outside.
They need a burner. They need a burner big time. And they could take it at 31 or 30.
Cooks. Well, no, but he's not really a burner. He's fast.
He's a burner.
He's fast, but he's not.
Possession guy.
Yeah.
Slot receiver, a la Wes Welker. They need to take a burner. They need speed on that outside because Vernon Davis, Anquan Bolden, and Crabtree are all similar. And that's not even counting Mario Manningham coming back. A.J. Jenkins could turn in, or not A.J. Jenkins, John Baldwin could turn into their burner in a sense because he's a big guy that can run. But they have to take a receiver at some point, or maybe even an athlete in the draft. A guy like Dree Archer could be a good pick for them. I wouldn't mind if they moved LaMichael James to slot and let him run routes. But another move that really hits close to home, Pittsburgh Steelers slapped the transitions tag on outside linebacker Jason Worlds, allowing them 5 days to match any offer that he receives. If no one signs him to an offer sheet, Worlds will play under a 1-year deal at $9.5 million.
Obviously, unless they come to it a long-term.
Yes, and my question for you, Dimitri, what happens with Lamar Woodley now regarding his situation? Is he out?
They don't. It depends on what happens with Worlds. If Kevin Colbert came out and said, I think around the combine, that the Steelers can keep both Worlds and Woodley. Listen, I'm not going to discredit Colbert, and I'm not going to discredit Omar Khan and how they handled the cap, but I don't see that happening at all. But he said that they can do it, but with Worlds now they got to basically what this is it kind of gives them control. It's a 9.75 $4-something million thing for a year. I almost said to me, Kyle. I'm over here thinking about saying to me. I'm not gonna do it though. Don't worry.
Why?
I always say to me. Anywho, we do it all the time. Anyways, Jason Worlds, Woodley won't be is gonna kind of have to be in La La Land right now because whatever he has to wait and see what happens with Worlds. If someone signs the offer sheet and Worlds goes, and the Steelers don't match, Woodley will stay.
Where could you see Worlds landing if anyone were to sign him to an offer sheet?
I keep seeing the Eagles.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing. I
keep seeing the Eagles, but I'm like, okay, you have Trent Cole on one side, Connor Barwin you just got from the Texans last year.
What about my squad?
the
Why
Pack
not,
don't
right?
have.
You just got Nick Perry.
Yeah, you got Nick Perry
I know,
coming up.
but apparently
Matthews will
we're
be
still-
healthy.
Apparently, we're still targeting outside linebacker. That's why they were saying Michael Sam is a possible
Yeah.
destination for us.
How about Tennessee?
Over there with Ray Horton.
They're gonna run a 3-4. They need pass rushers because Cameron Wimbley didn't pan out. Derek Morgan is not going to pan out as a 3-4 pass rusher, taking his hand out of the ground.
I mean, we can't discredit. I don't know if Worlds would want to do it, but he was an end in college. He can go to a 4-3 team, put his hand in the dirt.
He could. I hope he stays. I'm going to mention your tweet you said earlier before we started this. You said it's funny how last year around draft time the Steelers fans were saying, "Oh, Worlds is a bust. Get him out of here. We need to find a replacement." And now tides have turned and everyone wants him back because he exploded last year. Personally,
he really improved drastically.
And I don't think it's a one-year wonder. I think he's going to continue.
And
I just hope he
and I
stays
think-
healthy.
And I think you saw when Woodley was able to come back at the end of the year, they kept Worlds on the left side and said, "Woodley, you got to go to the right."
Yeah.
Because
I just don't want to see this turning into another Keenan Lewis situation because we saw, and Dimitri, you and I were talking about this, Keenan Lewis left for New Orleans and turned into one of the top shutdown corners in football.
how you doing, Deshaun Jackson?
Ugh.
When in the playoff game.
Yep.
As soon as Keenan Lewis went out for the concussion, Nick Foles tried him deep, and it was Deshaun
I
Jackson.
believe it went to like the 3-yard line.
Yeah.
You got something to add there? You're pointing something out on your computer.
I mean, I'm just looking here. It says Buffalo, a possible landing spot for free agent QB Michael Vick.
Yeah.
In other words, it's been a nice career, Mike Vick.
I don't see why.
Last guy who ended up in Buffalo after playing for Philly, I don't think it was directly after, was Terrell Owens. We all know how that went. So.
Kevin Cobb.
Went to Dallas then.
I know. But
Kevin Cobb.
Just along the way, he was on Philly. Kevin
Kevin
Cobb.
Cobb went to Arizona,
Whatever.
then Buffalo.
Point to be made here is if Michael Vick goes to Buffalo, it's been nice. It's been fun.
I don't see why this move would make sense, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because there's other ones, but they just drafted E.J. Manuel, and they had Thad Lewis who played a respectable quarterback position last year. They don't need a quarterback, in my opinion. You got to let E.J. Manuel
They gotta
ride it
make
out.
Sure his knees are right.
Yeah, they can't let him run.
I got one more. I also saw that the Ravens couldn't reach a deal with Michael Orr. Now,
I love Michael Orr.
Well,
I do too. The blind
you're-
side, whatever.
Well, okay, I'll let you finish.
People don't make as big a deal out of offensive linemen as they should be, but it's definitely a big deal in Baltimore because they're a team who's lost everybody
I
from that
think-
Super Bowl team.
I think Orr is not the headline of terms of offensive line that the offensive lineman that the Ravens need to keep. It's Eugene Monroe, who they acquired from Jacksonville to trade down on the left.
Dolphins
Right.
are high on him. They could go after him to replace Jonathan Martin. Brandon Albert.
And then
Another offensive lineman. It just got slapped with a transition tag. $10 million. Alex Mack at the Cleveland Browns.
He's good. He's not $10 million.
$10 million?
He's not
Come
worth it.
on.
they were saying that he's the biggest offensive lineman on the free agent market. Like, not biggest in terms of size.
But no,
you know,
What are you saying? He's
Best.
fat?
you know what? He might be, but he's a center.
You know what? $10 million for a center. Come
I
on.
like how I just articulated the T and center. He's a center.
Center.
Josh Hill, welcome to the big hits.
We're not going to talk about this. The new Bucks uniforms.
What?
Really,
Atrocious.
though? You like-
Atrocious.
They're
like
fine
him?
with me.
What? They look like they're playing in the XFL, Kyle. Come on.
That is true. That is true.
Who is it? Vince McMahon's at the helm?
It might be.
Get he hate me in a Bucks uniform.
They got the size 72 font Bucks
Yeah.
logo on the
Yeah.
side of the helmet with the
I'm
chrome
not-
face mask.
Not a fan of the helmet, but I actually do like the jerseys more than
They got like little block Lincoln log
that
type
color.
numbers.
Chipping in as a person who does color correction a lot, that's a awful color. I don't believe that. Yeah.
Wait a minute. 2 more moves I want to mention before we
he's
get.
gonna have to come back and apologize, Lee Corso style.
Yeah,
So.
I'm sorry. I want to come back to Peyton Manning in a second, but 2 other moves I wanted to mention. Brian Arakpo was slapped with the franchise tag. The Redskins are hoping to reach a long-term deal with him. If they were to let him reach the open market, that would have been atrocious for Dan Snyder and the Redskins because he would have been locked up quickly. And there's one other move. I'm trying to find it here. Oh, the Bills didn't slap a franchise tag on Jarius Byrd, and neither did the Cleveland Browns. And Dimitri, I mentioned this to you on Twitter. Please, Pittsburgh, go after one of them. Give me TJ Ward. I know you want Jarius Byrd. Give me TJ Ward. Please. Do one thing for me.
They already got a number 43. I don't need another one.
TJ Ward can switch numbers.
All right. Well, okay. What are you asking me?
Who would you want? We've talked about this on Twitter, but I want to get Kyle in on this conversation. I want TJ Ward because the Steelers haven't had a physical threat across the middle in years. Ryan Clark doesn't scare receivers whatsoever.
He used to.
I want a headhunter.
He used to.
Well,
So then get Dante Whitner on the cheap.
No. I do not want Dante Hittner, okay?
You're going to get him cheaper than TJ Ward.
TJ Ward's better.
let's say this first.
Oh, I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying he's going to become cheaper. Do you honestly are going to say? Do you really think? I would be shocked. I would buy. Trust me on this. I would jump out this window. If
We're about 4 stories up.
whatever. If the Steelers go out and make a big, I consider a TJ Ward signing or a Jarius Byrd signing
There are so many D-backs on the market. It's crazy.
huge news. If the Steelers did that, I'm telling you, I'm going out this window.
And
Sam Shields is out there too now.
Sam Shields is going to get paid.
Yeah.
And we mentioned this.
I think the Packers will keep him.
I think I said to you hypothetically, if the Steelers were to get Ward or Byrd, if Mike Evans was on the board at 15 in the draft, you take him and you draft a corner second round. Or if you flip-flop it. If Evans isn't on the board, you take a guy like Gilbert or Denard, who's ever there, or Clinton Dix, okay, and get a playmaker in the second round. But I think you have to address the secondary, at least in free agency. You can't rely on rookies to come in and just turn everything around.
That's why I think. Oh, no doubt. And I think that's why I said we were talking about if Paul Soliai was, because I said
Bring him in.
that Jerry Dulac was saying that he thinks that the Steelers are going to have one of those free agency years where they sign a starter, a key sign on the defensive side to be a starter. I think that if they were going to do that, they do have to go in the secondary. Like you said, Kyle, it's very deep in the draft and in the free agency pool. I think that if they're, like I said,
Altron Werner's out there. Titans can't come to a deal with him.
if they're going to make it, like I was trying to say, I don't know if I kind of made it clear I think it was on Twitter. If the Steelers say sign a safety in free agency, they're obviously going to draft a corner first. I'm saying whatever they don't address in this free agency, that's what they're going to address in the draft. If they get, I'm telling you right now, Carney, if they get a Bird or a Ward, and then they go out and get a Gilbert or Denard in the first round, I do not see that happening at all. First of all, now with the Worlds thing, they're $10 million over the cap. They'll cut 6.5 of it basically with Levi Brown gone.
Restructured. They restructured Miller.
Ike Taylor could be gone.
They restructured Heath Miller today.
Troy's looking to get restructured. They could give Ben an extension to lower his cap number. So whatever that is, I just
Do we honestly think, going off on a tangent here, Mike Evans, does he fall past 15?
No.
I know what you're doing.
Walk.
No way in hell. You're nuts if you think he does, because he's the next Megatron. There, I said it.
These two just fire shots back and forth. Different shows.
Yeah, seriously.
All right.
Wait, did you just hear what he said though?
No, I
Mike
tuned.
Evans is the next Megatron.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That's so bold.
Well, okay.
That's so bold.
What I'm saying is, how do we make the judgment after what's he have to do to be that next Megatron?
He's not going to put up the same numbers, but I'm saying
Do you know that Megatron runs a 4.3?
Yeah,
and what did Mike Evans
does
run?
Mike Evans
A
even weigh like?
4.5?
Is
No, he
Mike,
didn't.
4.4?
No, he didn't.
what does Mike Evans weigh compared to Calvin?
Don't tell me Mike Evans ran a 4.3.
Mike Evans, I believe, ran a 4.42 and had
what
like
does
a
he weigh
40
compared
inch.
to Calvin? Calvin's like tight end size.
I honestly,
Calvin Johnson's a freak.
I think there's
So is
similar,
Mike Evans, but he's not as freaky as Calvin Johnson.
I think they're similar in stature. I think Mike Evans is 6'4". Calvin
Johnson is like on the Justice League of freaks.
Well, that's a new one. I've never heard that. Calvin Johnson's 6'5", 236. Okay. Did you hear that? 6'5", 236 for Calvin.
6'5", 236.
Mike Evans, as I'm looking this up right now. Can't seem to find it.
I'm over here trying to find his 40 time.
While they're looking, back to the whole defense.
4.46.
4.46.
For a guy that big. I don't think Calvin ran a 4.3.
You want to look it up?
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Oh my God, you two.
I'm
Whatever,
telling you.
dude. Josh thinks Mike Evans is going to be as good as Calvin. I don't think so. Dimitri doesn't think so. But
I think it's going to be good. I don't
we're
think
off on a
it's gonna be
tangent here for like the 20th time in this whole
You know
NFL
what?
segment.
This
It's tough.
is a podcast. We can go wherever we want.
It's tough because there are just so many names flying around in the draft. It's a stacked one. Well, it's not stacked, but it's a good one.
I don't want to get off a tangent either, but I tweeted about it earlier.
Hey, Calvin ran a 4.35.
Thanks.
I'm just saying. I was close on Mike Evans. They're
So-
very similar.
Hold on, real quick, Cabo. I just want to say I tweeted about it earlier. The whole Jim Harbaugh thing going on in
Ooh.
San Francisco is ridiculous.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Anquan Bolden said just can't. Well, I don't know if he just said it, but I don't think anybody in our locker room has a problem with Coach Harbaugh. He said that laughing. I guess he was addressing the media with his contract extension. That to me blows my mind. 3 straight championship games, 1 Super Bowl appearance. I think his record's like 36-11. And
I think he's one of the best
Okay,
coaches
yeah,
in football.
okay, so you're hyping up Harbaugh for making 3 straight championship games and appearing in 1 Super Bowl, but everyone was saying fire Andy Reid after he did that.
I think they were saying fire Andy Reid after he lost the team in the final 3 years.
A lot of people were calling for his job way earlier than that.
Side note, Mike Evans, 6'5", 231.
So he is that size.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I never got to throw anything in about the defensive backs. I'll make it quick. You guys are talking about the Steelers getting one of them, but you're getting whatever ones the Eagles don't get. Because we've been talking a lot about the Eagles, and they're getting one of those defensive backs. There's no doubt
They're
about
going to
it.
get Jerry's Bird.
There's no doubt about it.
They're going to get Jerry's
Both
Bird.
of them play for Chip Kelly, Bird and Ward.
They're going to get Jerry's Bird.
Yeah, they're getting one of them.
They're gonna
and
get a
I
center
saw
fielder.
that Jerry's Bird might go to the Browns if the Browns lose T.J. Ward.
Well,
Which
hey.
doesn't make that much sense to me because Ward's asking for more than...
No, Bird's asking for more than Ward.
Yeah, so what sense does that make?
Ward
But-
turned down an $8 million per year extension from the Bills.
I think they're 2 different players, but
Real quickly,
They are. Cornerback and a safety. That's the difference right there.
they're both safeties.
Ward's-
One's a
okay,
free,
Ward.
one's a strong.
Okay.
Bird's more of a center fielder,
Mhm.
which you mentioned. The Steelers need someone like an Earl Thomas. That's why you want Bird. I see your point. But haha, Clinton Dix or Hashan. Okay. Really quickly, Peyton Manning was cleared in a sense. He has no structural damage in his neck. Seems fine to go for the 2014 season. Surprised?
I mean,
I'm not. Didn't seem to be bothering him at all last year. That's
did you
for
see the
sure.
Super Bowl? He looked pretty bothered then.
Oh, God. One game, and there goes his neck.
Cold weather.
No,
I said
but if
In Denver.
I
we
know.
can't push it. We can't throw it under the rug. Obviously, if he wanted to get it checked out, he must have felt a little discomfort. And coming off 4 major neck surgeries, that's not something that just F it. It's all right.
Well.
He just got his neck examined
Hey, well,
post 4 major neck surgeries.
gotta do what you gotta do, right?
I mean, still
And he
okay.
got cleared, so...
Is 2014 his last season?
No way.
I don't know.
Against a crappy schedule, he just had the best season of his career, so no way.
Woo! Cobb does not like ball. Does not like.
I have such a problem with scheduling. Like I like not scheduling, but like when people hype somebody up off of like when they play crappy
So
schedule.
are you
It's
saying
like,
that Wichita State is not good?
yes.
Are you saying that?
I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying they don't.
Oh!
They don't deserve the credit they've gotten. Why was this not in the content producer?
Oh,
You failed.
Wichita State's not good, Kyle.
I didn't say that they're not good. I think that
Our listeners just have
I think
to wait
everyone's
till-
drooling over 31-0, but that 31-0 is versus like me, you, Adam.
I'm not drooling over it, but I think it's impressive. You can't. Numbers
Sure,
don't
why
lie.
not?
13
Dude,
to
I know
31
high
0.
school teams that could go 31-0 against that schedule.
You don't know that.
I could put together a team of high schoolers
No, you
that I
couldn't.
know.
It's all.
Matter of
It's
fact-
the same thing. It's the same argument. You're saying that the best college football team couldn't beat an NFL team, correct?
Yeah.
How can high schoolers beat
I'm
college
joking.
teams?
I
I'm just clarifying.
I was joking, but their schedule is obviously weak.
It was.
Dude, there are so many teams that would have went undefeated against that schedule. So many.
It hasn't happened in.
It's going to. And, like, people are like, oh, Syracuse lost to Boston College. Yeah, because they're 27 games into their season,
I'm
and
just
they have to
saying.
play Boston College after playing 27 good teams.
I'm just
Wichita
saying.
State's been breezing through
There
this.
have been
They're locked
teams-
and loaded. They're, like, mid-season form right now, and Syracuse and them are, like, banged up after playing
I
that
got
schedule.
Kyle started.
Yeah,
I see his
it's a
point,
joke,
but
dude.
I don't think
It's a
teams.
joke.
There's a bunch of teams that could have done it. I mean, I think you mentioned 25. No,
What do you have to do to get out of a conference? Like, Creighton ran away from that awful conference. Like, they're going to be garbage after Doug McDermott leaves,
well,
but they
the only
still
reason
got out of that.
the only reason they left that conference was because they saw dollar signs by joining the Big East
Yeah,
or the
and there's
AAC.
obviously no dollar signs in the Missouri Valley Community College Conference.
Wichita
My
State
God.
is very upset with you.
Yeah,
Really
I'm
quickly,
very upset with
last
them.
point. Colin Kaepernick wants Jay Cutler money, meaning $18 million. Yes or no?
He deserves more than Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler got too much as it is.
If I'm the 49ers, I try and see if you can. I'm trying to think of. I know it's happened before. Try and see if you can work out something short term to get him happy now. Because I still think that. Listen, do I think Colin Kaepernick's a good NFL quarterback? Absolutely. I don't think he's $18 million a year worth. That's why I'm saying if there's like a stopgap kind of extension, like a 3-year, I don't know, $50 million or something like that. I don't know what it is. Something that's like you still buy yourself a little bit of time to see if he can still improve and become better as a passer. I mean, I think Jim Harbaugh made the right decision going from Alex Smith to Kaepernick when he did. But
$18 million's a lot for Kaepernick.
But I mean, if you put it, if you say it the way you did with does he deserve Cutler money? I mean, he's been to a Super Bowl. He's been into 2 straight NFC Championship games, a Super Bowl, like I said. I mean, yeah, if you put it that way, I think he's better than Cutler.
Yeah, fair. That's just a lot of money to be asking for as a third-year quarterback.
But and then once once San Francisco does that, all right, see ya to the rest of their depth and their deepness, if you will, of their roster. Because once you do that, see ya.
It's the same thing's going to happen to Seattle when they have to
Unless
pay Russell Wilson.
You do it smart like the Packers did and
Oh.
save up knowing Aaron Rodgers is going to need that
You
contract
just told
eventually.
me that they beat the Steelers in 2010 with 48 out of their 53 players of their own guys that they've drafted.
49 out of 53. But what are we getting at
Same
here?
thing.
You said 48 out of 52. before going
Sorry,
on.
I slipped.
Yeah.
But 4 players weren't drafted by the Packers. What are we getting at?
What I'm getting at is you got away with.
No, the Packers wait. They know when their players' contracts are going to be up, and they save up the money just so that to know that they're going to re-sign those
I
players.
think what you're getting at is kind of off. You're mentioning free agency. The Packers do it the right way, kind of like the Steelers. They home grow their guys.
No, I know.
And then they wait. They know when their contracts are going to be up. They're like, Aaron Rodgers' contract's going to be up in 2 years. We better not spend any money these next 2 years because we're going to need that.
Which I
for
don't
Aaron
think San
Rodgers.
Francisco goes out and buys anyone really either.
Not really. Not many NFL teams even really do at all.
No.
Actually.
Real quick, last
Not
point
baseball.
before we move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Eagles' dream team. That really worked out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Vince Young. Moving on, though, last point regarding NFL. Apparently, the New England Patriots are not happy with Danny Amendola
I saw that.
and are preparing to move on without him. That's a team that's going to be undergoing a lot of change. They could lose Julian Edelman, Aqib Talib. They could move Danny Amendola. Brady's the last
Spikes.
remaining pillar, and Brandon Spikes could be gone. What do they do?
They got Tom Brady and Belichick.
Oh, come on.
That's all you need. That's all you need.
So you're telling me I could go out there and play receiver for the
Absolutely.
Patriots and go to the AFC Championship
That's
game?
what they did last year.
Julian Edelman takes offense to that.
Whatever. He only had all those catches because of Brady.
Trade for
Like
Mike.
what Welker was before he went
Trade
to play
for Mike
Brady.
Wallace.
Trade for Mike Wallace.
Top off like Wallace.
Oh my God.
Or they're gonna sign Emmanuel Sanders.
Take him, please.
Since when has Brady loved a run and gun type receiver?
Randy Moss.
He wasn't only run and gun though. He'll have his fair share of 8-9 catch games.
Yeah, but I think the majority of his catches were deep balls. More than half of his
Randy
catches were deep
Moss
balls.
Was soft. In that he didn't want to go over the middle. That's why.
He still had his 8-9 catch games in New England. I mean, we could look it up. I don't know if that's like a fact. Like if you have like multiple.
Oh, I'm
ones,
not
but
saying. I mean,
Mike Wallace
he broke
is
a record.
Strictly, like, see ya. I'm just gonna run this fly real quick. Just give it to me if you want. Actually, no, he says you need to because I remember that fiasco last year too. But Tom Brady's not going to have that, so scratch that one off the books.
Last one, moving on. Bernard Pollard re-upped with the Tennessee Titans today.
not?
Believe a 2-year deal. What?
No, I mean, like, remember Mike Wallace was arguing about not getting the ball. Like,
Yeah, well,
Patriots don't have that.
he's a crybaby.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned, Bernard Pollard re-upped with the Titans, I believe, 2-year deal.
I don't know. It's a multi-year deal. I don't know the exact.
I'm assuming 2 with an option for a 3rd. But that's going to do it for football talk. I mean, we just went for 40 minutes. We got to get into IUP really quickly. The women go on the road Tuesday night, tonight in a sense, to Edinburgh. Edinburgh, the number 1 team in the West. They haven't beaten Edinburgh at all this year, but IUP's been playing well, granted against lesser competition. Dimitri, you called that game Saturday. What did you see from the women in that game?
All right, well, let me tell you something here. The first half, I felt like it was an entire game because of the amount of just hot streaks, cold streaks, players playing sloppy. You saw some really crisp basketball. IUP came out, and I think they got up to as much as 10-0 on UPJ. At one point, they were shooting 50% from the floor, and then UPJ started to get their, I can't say it, but they got their stuff together, played better defense, got on transition because, IUP lives and dies by the 3, which causes long rebounds and gets teams out in transition. UPJ at one point tied at 27. IUP was able to regain the lead before the end of the first half, and I think IUP ended up shooting about 37.5% from the floor. Then the second half, holy hell! I tell you, they at one
Snooze
point
fest, right?
they shot at one point 82% from the field in the second half. They must have went for at least 3 or 4 minutes of not missing a shot. Lindsay Stamp had, I think, a double-double by I don't know if she had it before the end of the first half. I know she had finished with 21-11. Ashley Stoner had, I think, 15. I think Leslie Stapleton had 14. But I asked Goose, who was on this podcast talking hockey. I said he called the game with me. Can they beat Edinburgh? And he doesn't believe so. But I said, if they're shooting, if they shoot like that.
UPJ also is the worst defense.
Oh,
in the PSAC.
I know. But that's what I said. Because I said that in the pregame. I said UPJ gives up 80 points a game, but I said it doesn't matter how many points they give up. IUP wasn't missing.
Yeah.
It's not like UPJ wasn't playing. They weren't playing great defense, but again, they were contesting shots. They were, trying to contain Ashley Stoner down the post, but IUP just couldn't miss. So it doesn't matter how good a defense. Better offense is going to be great defense.
Kyle, you've seen more men's basketball games than Dimitri and I have combined probably this year, and you've only been here for 5 weeks.
What are you saying?
I never get a chance to go watch them. But
You going tomorrow?
no, I work 8 to 12. The men host Mercyhurst Tuesday night. It's KCAC 7 o'clock. Mercyhurst coming off a 58-55 win over Cal. Should it be smooth sailing for the Crimson Hawks men's team tomorrow night?
To be honest with you, I missed the last game at Mercyhurst that was on a Wednesday, and I know Dimitri was there.
I was sitting there with him too.
Yeah. So you guys were at that one. You guys could probably give more firsthand on
It was
how that game went.
it was all free throws. IUP was 26 of 29 from the charity stripe. I believe 19 of 20 in the second half.
Wow.
Mercyhurst just kept fouling.
Yeah, okay. So if that's how it's going to be, then IUP should smooth sail. They hit their free throws pretty well. They're a bigger Division II team. If you have a big guy like Matisse playing like a guard forward position, then yeah, clearly they're just going to – it's not going to be smooth sailing if they keep getting fouled like that.
We
Should be all bruised up for the next one. Hopefully not, but –
Was that Mercyhurst is the guy with the team with the guy that had the most accessories on? I think a sleeve, a headband.
Oh, they're one of those teams.
Sleeve
Forget it.
headband, full sleeve tattoo.
He's done.
44, big
yes,
white guy, and he had the leg pads on. Oh yeah.
Oh, he was trash too.
Willie Cauley-Stein of D2?
Yes.
Or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nope, they're done.
But
Just not a shot blocker like Cauley Stein.
we know what IUP has trouble with. That's a post threat, and Mercyhurst does not have that.
Yeah, just bruisers down
Although Maurice Lewis Briggs was kept in check, but I also thought he was forcing shots when they played Slippery Rock the other night. But I think they should have no problem with Mercyhurst.
Yeah, so IUP students go down to the KCAC Tuesday night.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Crimson Hawks take
Tonight.
on the Lakers of Mercyhurst. We were recording this on a Monday, so by the time you hear this, it will be tonight. So go to the KCAC tonight. Just quick shout-outs. Go Pokes. Oklahoma State upsetting Kansas. They are in the tournament, in my opinion. We talked about that last Thursday. They had to win one of those three.
It was funny, and we're gonna get into it later. I'm slowly progressing towards picking Kansas as my national champion.
After losing to Oklahoma State,
Yes.
just like that.
Joel
Joel
Embiid
Embiid
can't
has
stay
back-
healthy. He's out the
can't-
next 2 games.
Yeah, with his back issues, but I think he'll be good
Such
to
a
go.
toss-up.
He's scary.
Let me give my shout-out to Masahiro Tanaka.
Oh, jeez.
2 scoreless innings.
Hey,
Let me get-
spring
let-
training.
let me
Just for- all right, Mr. Pirates.
Let me get
Freaking
all right.
out
You
about
wanna
them
go
winning
2 scoreless
two?
innings? Noah Syndergaard. I can't even know if I said it right. He is better than Bashir Takanaka, whatever his name is. 95 to 97 on the fastball and the gun. He's dirty. Him, Wheeler, Harvey.
Who are that's the rotation for the AAA New York team. Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about. The Mets. That's
Hey,
right.
how
That's what
dare
they're
you.
called.
What,
How about Gregory Polanco?
Did we get on Twitter and say what the outcome of the bet would be? Because remember we had a bet, me and Kyle.
Yeah, no, it's whoever's team has a better record at the end of the year.
I know, but I'm saying, didn't we ask? We're gonna tweet and say what should be.
Yeah, we have to do that.
Oh.
Remember, we were gonna say
Oh,
we're gonna tweet.
oh,
we're gonna tweet. Yeah,
Okay,
see.
so we'll post it on Twitter. It's if
The
out of
Yankees,
who has a better record. If,
Yeah.
if the Yankees have a better record than the Mets, Dimitri has to do something. If the Mets have a better record than the Yankees, I have to do something. We'll
And
post it
here
on
I
Twitter.
am sitting with the Pirates. Woo! I
Uh,
don't have to do anything.
I mean, you should. The Pirates are awful. No, I'm only kidding. But we'll put it on Twitter. We'll see what we get.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for the 12th episode of the Out of Bounds podcast.
Holy hell!
Yeah, well, we're moving
12.
along. Getting old here. For assistant producers Adam Clapp and Dimitri George, and our guest, not a guest, you're always on, Kyle Condor. I'm your host, Josh Carney, signing out.
All right, say it.
What's going on, everybody? It's Kyle Condor. Just letting you know the Out of Bounds podcast is brought to you by the Penn, IUP Student Voice, with music provided by Beats by the Passion, High Five. Don't forget to holler at your boys on Twitter at the OOBP, and you can also check out our podcast at thepenn.org or on iTunes.